Do do do. Hello, hello. So, let's see. I think I got all my shit together. Started a little late. First SAR checking in. The SAR has checking in. Holy cow. Thank you for checking in, SAR. Alright, hold on. I gotta do this ghetto thing because I'm lazy. Actually, don't know how to do this until... Yo, what's up, Andrew? Checking the SAR. Everyone like and whatever. Do all the likes and whatever on the stream if you can. I think that... Apparently that helps the I don't even fucking know. Just do it. Wait, is this me? Yeah, wait. Properties. This one needs to get with this one. And then we have a chat box. How about dislike? I guess you could do that too. I don't think there is a dislike. I don't. Does YouTube still have dislikes? I don't think it does. Yo, what's up, Wawani-chan? What's up, David Tay? Checking the SARs. Everyone's SAR checking in. Check the check. Everyone like and subscribe. Just kidding. Everyone's probably subscribed already. Just waiting for a few more people before I get started. You know, just shooting the shit. Just, you know, I guess like oh yeah, dislikes aren't shown. Yeah, whatever. Like, dislike. Who the fuck knows? I don't even fucking know. I think they both probably like, you know, controversy is probably also good for the algorithm too. So maybe that helps it, even if you do dislike it. I don't fucking know. I don't care. I'm gonna, while we're waiting, I'm gonna open a little gadget I got. It's DJI Osmo. That's right, DJI. I'm promoting Chinese products. So if you wanna sponsor me, if you wanna sponsor the communist in America, feel free to drop some yuan into my CCP account, my CCP propagandist account, my Wumao account, where I get 50 cents every time I stream. You get 50 cents a minute, actually, from the CPC. That's how I support myself, guys. I'm a CCP spy, actually. I work for 50 cents a minute. 50 cents a minute. So every time I stream, what is that? That's $30 an hour. That's pretty good, actually. I should stream all the time. Did I watch the Kirk funeral? No, I had better things to do with my life than watch the funeral about somebody I don't care about. Well, that's pretty cool. Look at that shit. It's like a mini unboxing video that's going on right now. And the reason I got one of these things is, well, I have to do some shooting stuff for the party. And I wanted to get one of these anyway. And so I was like, hey, why don't I kill two birds with one stone and just get this thing that I always wanted to get anyway. And so that is why I have this. Figure out how to use that later because I think it's going to be a little more complicated. But the main reason I got that also is because I got a new iPhone. I told you guys I got the iPhone 17 256, the base model. It was just $800. The reason I got the low model is because apparently it's very similar to the Pro, just the camera's not, you know, I don't get like 48 kajillion megapixels or whatever the fuck. But I don't care really about that because I'm not a vain influencer. What does KTSC and Charlie Kirk have in common? They are both dead. Well, that's a take. That's a take. I guess it's somewhat true. We've got our weekly report from Yosef Huang. Thank you for the report. It's still dead, apparently, KTSC. Funny how people never mention DJI when talking about Chinese products being cheap and low quality. Yeah, because they're retarded. Um, I have an Action Pro 5 better than... Is that DJI, Andrew? I don't know what that is. Action Boat Pro. Same in the gun world. Nobody says that about HoloSun. I don't know what HoloSun... Is that a Chinese brand? You didn't get the Air. No, I'm not gay. So that's why I didn't get the Air. Yeah, only homos get the Air. I mean, seriously, like, who would get the Air except for women and homos? That's who the Air is for. So no, I did not get the Air because I'm not a homo. Anyway, DJI. Yeah, no, I've been looking at other DJI products like the mic, DJI mic, the lavalier mics, which some people think segue into this. Some people think may have been the thing that killed Charlie Kirk. I mean, there's all these different theories going around. There's one guy who like looks like he's like pressing some detonator, and then finally on the last one it like kills Charlie Kirk, and it kind of looks like the Breaking Bad scene when Tio's pressing the bell like so many times to get the detonator to like detonate. There's a guy who was standing behind Charlie Kirk, and right when it's like the thing like he gets shot or exploded. I don't even freaking know. What else happened? I mean, some people are saying that it was a ricochet of body armor, but then there was confirmation that the body armor wasn't there. But most people are saying the 30-06 bullet, there's no way that there would not be an exit wound. Apparently, the bullet was caught in Charlie Kirk's body. I really heavily doubt that this autopsy was performed without a CIA doctor involved. I don't know if they could just ignore the rules of physics and science and biology, and say that this 30-06 Mauser, apparently with enough force to go through a half inch of steel. So it literally can go through a half inch of steel, this fucking bullet. And they're telling me, or apparently the Fox News or the FBI is telling us that Charlie Kirk's bones were adamantium or some shit. And so that's why his body caught the bullet. There are other people who are pointing at this guy. Apparently he was doing some tech, kind of like at some tech convention, but it was really dystopian because he showed this drone that could basically kill you, and you would be dead because it would shoot a small bullet right into your brain and you would die instantly. So I saw that going around and being kind of like suggested as possible thing. But in any case, I think that all of these different theories and all of these different kinds of action points was probably a secondary kind of insurance policy. Let's say the American public sort of figures it out that we're not telling the truth. Well, now we put in like all these different sorts of patsies all over the place. We plant them to do all these different things. We don't tell them what it is. We just like tell them, hey, just do this thing, and we'll pay you like $500 or something to like act weird in some way. And now they are fearful of speaking out because they know that they could probably get killed if they ever talk about it. And so, yeah, it's probably like maybe several actors that they hired to kind of like do this thing or whatever, and make it seem like they were so it's just like everyone's on a wild goose chase. No, Yosef, I don't, unfortunately. I would if I had more cash reserves on hand, but I have no gold at the time. Anyway, That's kind of like what I'm thinking of what's going on with all these different theories about Charlie Kirk and all these whatever. I think the main thing is that everyone I mean, like, everyone with an IQ of, like, 130 or above pretty much knows it was Israel, whether they admit it or not. You got your groypers. A lot of they're don't get me wrong, there are a lot of intelligent groypers, and they know exactly what they're doing. Because this was literally the game plan. Literally the game plan from day fucking one. For 100 years ago, it was the same fucking game plan. So Zionists and Nazis were working together from the very fucking start. Actually, Zionists were working before the Nazis. They got a head start. And it's not just the Havara Agreement, Andrew Yu. It was much more than that. There's, as you can see, there's a whole book full of what actually is going on here. But yeah, $30 of Costco gold. I don't know if I trust that. I'd probably trust I don't know, one of those jewelers. I don't freaking even know. Wait, let's see. You didn't get the air or about. Remember when you guys invited that crazy DJ out? Yeah, D Wallace. So apparently DJ Elf is trying to. What's funny is that, you know how like all those videos are like, oh yeah, we're gonna start back up again. Just email this to apply to be a commentator or whatever. Like, they were searching for conservative commentators, and that's why they weren't up and running again. Even though the real reason is because nobody fucking wants to do that show anymore, because they all saw what happened to Doug Kim, and they were like, yeah, no. So anyone useful is probably never gonna go to KTSC because of me. But it's funny because DJ Elf took that seriously and was like, hey, I'll be on it. Come out, reach out to me. I'm a shameless I'm a shameless self promoter of myself, and I don't care that nobody listens to this show anymore because everyone knows it's garbage. I just wanted to, I don't know. It's DJ Elf, right? Who knows what goes on in that guy's mind? Bro spam commented his way on. Yeah, exactly. And I did not approve of that choice, by the way, D Wallace. I was just kind of like, what are you doing? And it turned out to be a bad decision because he started crashing out and threatening people that were on TATSC, not just me, but other people. Won't get into that, but that was not a good decision by Michael J. Kim. Let's just say that. Anyhow, man, I guess not a lot of people care about Japanese war crimes. It's funny because last week I was talking about the Groypers and whatever, and 30 people showed up on the stream. Now I think there's only like 8 right now. Not that or 10 or whatever. Not that I'm like, I don't care about views or whatever, but it just goes to show that like nobody cares. Nobody cares about Asian death. As much as people like to say that they support China, support whatever, it's just like, yeah, well, no, you don't really. You only kind of support it because it now supports your agenda, But yeah, anime, Japanese porn, actually. So yeah, that's kind of what I went to this past weekend. So from Wednesday to Saturday, I was in San Francisco, and I met some people. Actually, someone who found me through KTSC was the invitee to the thing. Well, I'll back up a little bit. So back in 2020, I was on Twitter. I was doing all this stuff, obviously online about anti-Asian hate. I wasn't really into the communist game back then. I was more about like, hey, how do we stop, um, our elders from getting killed over and over again. That was my main directive in 2020, 2022, 21 or so. Hard to believe it was that long ago, but that was what I was doing mostly. And so I came across this woman who was kind of like a community leader in SF, I guess, at least with like the Chinese community. And she was talking about all this anti-Asian hate crimes too, and like, and not being ashamed. Like the Boa liberals were like fucking trying to not talk about it, but she was one of the rare people, and we kind of connected because she was like, yeah, like we were just both talking about the same shit. And she was more focused on SF local politics because that's where she lived, and her Chinatown community. But I was obviously about all the different New York City, San Francisco, Los Angeles, obviously because I'm there. I was talking with people in Pennsylvania or Philadelphia because it was bad out there. Not really. Yeah, and then wasn't really too much going on in the Maryland, D.C. area, to be honest. I think there was some activity in Chicago as well, especially, and then some cities in Texas. But yeah, the point is, I was kind of monitoring all these different kind of cities, and she was kind of like one of the big voices in San Francisco, which also has one of the most Asian people in American cities. And so, yeah, we had connected then, but I had no idea she also 10 years ago. So she told this kind of like interesting story. So her grandmother, so she's from Hong Kong, or I think she was either born there or whatever. She moved to the States probably, she's 1.5. But her grandmother kept telling her stories about the Japanese and the war crimes, and like especially like the comfort women stuff, right? And I guess like for the longest time, I guess she was like, wait, is my grandmother on crack? Or, because like that's not the story I'm told about Japan all the time, whatever. Until like, I guess like, when she was an adult, maybe, after college or whatever, she kind of like looked into it and discovered her mom was not, or grandmother was not on crack. And, and that it was all true. And so 10 years ago, she kind of started this organization called the Pacific, I think it's called like the Pacific Atrocities Education sort of thing. Anyway, it's basically like, well, the organization first started out by publishing books in English, and she kind of tried to write these books herself. I have one of the first ones that she wrote for the organization. This is about Ishishiro, which is the the guy who ran Unit 731, the doctor who ran Unit 731. And so she started this 10 years ago, and now it's kind of like to the point where it's like kind of like a legitimate sized nonprofit. They have a bunch of books under their publishing that I bought a few of them myself. I bought not only that, I bought Echoes of the Empire by Rei Matsumoto. This talks about the propaganda that Japan kind of made while they were, genociding all of us, to kind of sell it right to their people. But it's interesting you brought up the anime thing, David Tay, because actually I did hear, it was always rumored to me that anime was like used to soften the image of the Japanese. And then some Japanese people that I knew said that was, that was propaganda or whatever. And this was a Japanese person that I kind of not 100% trusted, but it was probably not gonna bullshit me that much. And so yeah, I never found a direct link from anime creation to propagandize over Imperial Japanese Army stuff. But I think like there was this there were these group of like high school teenagers. They made a documentary about Unit 731. And I was like, wow, like, how did you guys like even know about this like at your age? And they were kind of saying that in some of their research, they sort of found that there's no direct link, right? There's no direct link that the Japanese made anime specifically as a push to soften their image. But apparently, judging by the propaganda that they made during the war and how they adapt their propaganda in general, it's probably kind of like an unspoken strategy that they employed, with the Hello Kitty. Obviously, I want to do more research myself on that. I don't want to speak out of turn and say that it's 100%, but there's pretty good evidence that suggests that anime was not only, in my opinion, more recently, especially Imperial Japanese Army, like, apologetic propaganda. It might also be initially a way for people to get a different view of Japan, given its history of not, its history of being worse than the Nazis, right? So I still have to read that. The last one was interesting because I met this author as well. This was the guy who invited me, because so that's interesting too. Even though I knew the organization head, Jenny, she actually wasn't the one who had the idea of inviting me. It was one of her intern people. So I guess like what they do is they kind of like have fellowship grants or internships, where if like an academic like Quinn Cho wants to write something like this book, that they'll fund their research and like help them whatever. And so yeah, this was Quinn is like he's really young actually. I think he's 24 or 25, something like that. Just graduated USC, but literally wrote this book while he was in college. And it's about the Kwangtung Army in Manchuria, which is basically generally their main imperialist army after the railway incident, after the Mukden incident, right? And so he's just kind of like going through the history of like how that exactly all came to be and how that all happened. And so I've been using it for my own research projects. And so, I kind of got an advance copy a month ago, but I wanted to get the hard copy so I can use it more. My process is more suited for hard copy stuff. So I bought that book. But yeah, I was impressed because Quinn Cho is a Korean dude. I thought he was Chinese actually. But he had found out about me because I had made that LA Riots documentary on Radio Korea, and then he watched the show. He watched the K-Town Social Club, and he is also in agreement that getting rid of me and the show ending kind of was like, well, the proof is in the pudding. But yeah, if you're watching, Quinn, that's accurate. But yeah, after we had like a day of seminars, I guess, from different people. There was a speaker for the Filipino comfort women and also guerrilla fighters, and then there was a presenter on, what else was there? There was a presenter on like CIA stuff that was possibly going on. There was with like the war crime like handling and the research and all that stuff. Quinn obviously presented on the Kwangtung Army. Ray was presented on the propaganda that was going on. There was a bunch of stuff that was like seminars, different seminars. So, you know, I didn't. I kind of knew a lot of the stuff that was being presented, but I guess other people were, you know, kind of surprised. And then on Friday, yeah, Friday, we some of us went to see. Um, the organization is called Pacific. Let me see. So it's called Pacific Atrocities Education, and you can. I'll put the thing in the chat. I put it in the chat if you want to see that link. Yeah, pacificatrocities.org. Yeah, it started like 10 years ago. Yeah, I guess like it's interesting because you know Jenny's not actually a communist. Um, she's not like anti-communist either, but she's more like a real type person. She gave me the whole Deng Xiaoping black cat white cat quote. So I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I feel like I would be that too if I didn't care about politics. Which sometimes I'm sort of like, you know what? Maybe I should just be like, you know what? I tried and moved to China and lived the rest of my life in relative comfort. Relative comfort of not being killed for being Asian or communist or a whole host of other things or, you know, trying to speak the truth. Um, or just like not being hated on in general for my identity. You know, that would be nice, probably. It's not an experience I had for 41 years of my life, but I'm down to try it out. I'm down to give it a whirl, you know? You know, when I put it like that, I'm just kind of like, why am I here? What is the rational thing that is keeping me in America? I mean, obviously I know. I mean, obviously it's mostly my parents, but I swear to God, I'm just kind of like there is no permutation even if the revolution were to happen to tomorrow that my life would not be materially better in Asia than it is in America for the tail end of my life. There's no permutation in reality. Um, yeah, and now that USA is done with Hollywood, they're just getting Japanese anime now, which is not only is it Imperial Japanese, you know, propaganda, it's also nihilism. It's also nihilism. There's a lot of nihilism. There's a lot of nostalgia. And I said this on Twitter. I'm just kind of like, you know, when you really think about it, nihilism is a tool of the ruling class to kind of keep the masses kind of retarded in a way and be like, oh, yeah, look to the past. It was better in the past. Make America great again. You know, don't look to the future. Don't think about how we can improve things in the future. Look to the past. We gotta go back to, you know, what it was before. But then, in every single permutation of the past in history, especially under capitalism, it has been worse for the vast majority of people. So they're basically trying to, you know, instill this nihilism so that people don't even think of communism as being this solution to their problems. And it's quite effective. That's why in Japan you have people who don't even they're the ones who actually started the trend of not having children. Uh, you know, like people think it was like South Korea, blah blah blah, whatever, and yeah, we have that problem too. But I think in actuality, you know, their problem started before, even way before they had problems with the economy. Um, the whole like staying at home and being a gamer and never, you know, leaving your house. that trend was actually started. I know for a fact that trend, that the incel video game trend, that was started in Japan, and it probably started maybe 20 to 25 years ago. By the 2000s, like we kind of like view Elliot Rodger as the start of our incel movement. That was 2014. So around 2014 was when the incel movement started in America, right? But I think it happened 10 to 15 years prior to that in Japan, because I actually went on a mission trip to Japan in 2010. And one of the things we were learning about Japan was this growing population of men. I forgot what they call them. I think they're probably the Neto-Yus or whatever, but Neto-Yus are just like the right-wing extremists, but I think there's a lot of overlap with them. But in Japan, we learned that even in 2010, there was like 100,000 at least of just like Japanese men, like past high school age, past college age, that were just living at home with their parents, never even looking for work, and always playing video games. And what they would do is they would just like eat at the 7-Eleven, which apparently is pretty cheap and decent in Japan. They would get, their I don't know, at the 7-Elevens they have like these like rice cake things or whatever at Japanese 7-Elevens, and so they would get their sustenance late at night, when when they were done playing or session or whatever, or they were in between sessions getting sustenance. So that's kind of like been going on in Japan for over at least since 2010, since that was when I even first learned about that 15 years ago. And so, anime and Japanese culture in general is really like just like black pill everywhere. And I think the reason for that is to better kind of like fascist control the population. What's a lot of main characters are like what? Can't dodge the roach. Hikokomori. What's that? I don't even know what that is. Roach. Anyway, yeah, so I wanted to review Evil Unbound. Let me see if I can pull up. Let's watch the trailer. Let's watch the trailer together, guys. Let's do that. Let's do that. Hold on, I gotta get the trailer up. Roger? Can't dodge the Roger? I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't understand. Okay, is that the good one? No, I want to see like... I want to see a scary fucking trailer. Are you kidding me? Wait, what is this? Is this a full movie? Hold on a second. Hold on a second. No, that's not a good one. Okay, good. I got the official trailer. All right. All right. I got the official trailer. Let's see. Is it this one? Yeah. All right. Let's watch this trailer, I guess. That did not work. Wait, why is my... Oh, there we go. Clearly, I'm not good at this thing. Clearly, I need some help. I really need, like, a technical person to, like... You know what? Whatever. This is good enough. This is good enough, right? Whatever. We're gonna live with this. All right. Okay. And then we're gonna put me. We're gonna put me over here. Is this disorienting? All right. All right. Can you hear this? By the way. Can you hear that? Indian IT, that's right. We got a Jeet on site. I'm the Jeet. I'm a Jeet for my thing. Could you hear that? All right, here we go. Boom.
こいつらを外に出すべきではないんだ。
Ruh-roh. All right. So that was disturbing. Was it not? Yeah, so definitely check that out. No, it's kidding. So if you guys remember, I also watched Dead to Rights last month. And I will say that as a film, as a total film, I think Dead to Rights is probably a better film. But I think this will definitely be a lot more compelling to most. Because the information is not as well known. People kind of know about Nanchang. Not only that, Nanchang only really affected the Chinese. Whereas Unit 731 had victims from not only China, but Russia, Korea, and possibly other places within the Japanese Empire. I mean, like, it was just like proximity, right? Manchuria was very close to China, Korea, and Russia. So they had Russian prisoners as well as Korean prisoners, which they kind of like talk about too in the movie. There's a scene where there are Russian prisoners and they speak in Russian. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. What also kind of stuck out to me was like, yeah, like most of the victims were either Chinese, Korean, and mostly North Korean in that regard, and Russian. And it's like, for the first time, we're seeing this war crime being publicized in like a mainstream media product. You know, and this was only possible because of the People's Republic of China. Like, this is only possible because China now became strong enough such that it can make a movie on the global stage with this production. You know, the economics of China now can support it making these kinds of movies. Because for the longest time, you know, we had the Nuremberg trials. We had like small Tokyo trials, but they were like bullshit. Even the Nuremberg trials, they didn't like go after some of the Nazis that they found useful, right? Because Operation Paperclip, whatever. But it was in Tokyo, it was like a complete joke, even compared to that. even compared to the whatever, it was a complete joke. The Americans tried to actually hide the entire Unit 731 completely because they were getting all the research from the Japanese. And what was also interesting, because Ishishiro, the guy that I showed you before, he actually thinks he's going to get killed, right? Because he's like, oh yeah, I did some bad shit. I should hide out right now. And so he actually fakes his own death in 1945 to try to escape like capture. And then instead the Americans are like, nah, it's all good. You're good, bro. Just give us the stuff and, we're all good. And actually you can work for us. You can work for us at Fort Detrick. Oh, and you can, probably live to your, old age when you die of cancer. That's basically, what it's kind of like, if they had Heinrich Himmler, captured and they were like, you know what? As long as you give us all your crazy research about, Aryan whatever and all the, sort of mythological stuff you might have found, we'll let you live and, you can have a nice life in the CIA. It's basically, the equivalent of well, I'm not saying that it's mainstream. What I'm saying is that it's like big enough so that if you wanted to see it, it's like possible to see it, and they are definitely putting their muscle behind it, their economic muscle behind it. And I could tell that it was being made primarily for Westerners. Because Chinese people, they all know. They all kind of know, right? They all know what happened. It's kind of like preaching to the choir. This movie is somewhat preaching to the choir if they made it just for Chinese audiences. Because for the most part, Chinese people know what the fuck went on. Obviously, in the West, we only know about the Holocaust since Zionists need that to maintain their imperialism. And so that's the only reason we know about the Holocaust so well. And everyone knows about Holocaust so well. Even Asian people, they don't even know about their own Holocaust, but they know about the German Holocaust or the Nazi Holocaust a lot more than their own Holocaust. And but the people in China and the people of North Korea and probably some people of Russia, they kind of know what the Japs were up to. The Kasparov trial, I don't even know how to say that. I butchered that. My Russian is terrible. My Russian is non-existent, actually. Let's just put it that way. But there was some trial. It's called like the Kasparov trial or something that they held in 1949, where they did kind of like prosecute some of these Japanese war criminals, but also the Soviets needed their research as well, and so they did punish them, but they also kind of needed their research because they knew the Americans were using the research, so they're like, all right, well, we got to know what the Americans are up to, and so blah, blah, blah. And so, unfortunately, like the Hitler V-2 rocket and their sarin gas that both the Soviets and Americans wanted their hands on, both the Soviets and Americans wanted their hands on the biological stuff that was going on in Unit 731. And so the war crimes were never really properly prosecuted, especially on the eastern side, because they tried to bury it. It's only really because of the Soviets and the Chinese that we even know that it existed, because when the trials came out, the American military or the American government was like, oh no, that's propaganda. That's Soviet propaganda, which is funny because I learned recently that Zionists called reports coming out of Russia that a lot of Jews were dying was Soviet propaganda as well. So it kind of like shows you that anything that they call as Soviet propaganda is probably good and true, and everything that they don't is probably evil and false. So that's a good heuristic to follow from now on. So yeah, Andrew, there's a beginning scene. I guess this somewhat of a spoiler, but not really since it's way in the beginning. But this is why I think it was mostly for Western audiences. So when the war's ending, in 1945. So the whole reason they have a biological weapons unit is because they thought the Geneva Conference was bullshit, and just naive, and that every country should use whatever means at their disposal to kill as many people as possible, I guess. And so they also knew that killing a lot of people could be expensive, with bombs and whatever, with traditional weapons. But if you use like plague and whatever, you can kind of grow that shit pretty cheaply, and it could be a good weapon in terms of ROI. And so, the Japanese, they didn't have as many resources, even as the Germans did. Germans had more resources than the Japanese even. The Japanese were kind of like running on fumes, especially once they started their main war with China. They kind of just like didn't realize how many people were in China, and so they tried. That's why they made the bubonic plague bombs to like. That was their way of clearing the Lebensraum of China for their own interests. So that's why Ishishiro was given that unit 731, because they were like, the emperor was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, yeah, we should have something so we can kill like so many people quickly, so that we can clear it for our own interests, right? Get the genocide machine going. And so at the end of the war, the situation was pretty desperate. The Japanese knew that they were going to lose, but they wanted to kind of like try to dictate one last battle or one last stand so that they could surrender on kind of like negotiated terms. Be like, the rationale was basically like, if we can kind of convince them, the Allies, that it would cost too much on their end to take us down, maybe we can kind of hold on to some of this stuff we've acquired, like the Southeast Asian colonies, or maybe even just like Taiwan and Manchuria, like just kind of like trying to like consolidate some of those gains, and like be like, all right, we fucked up, we're sorry, just don't kill us anymore, we'll give back all the European colonies, but just let us keep the Chinese stuff. Like that was just probably something that was going on in their minds or whatever, in their Jap minds. And so Ishishiro, though, so in Ishishiro in 1945, he planned something called Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night, which was basically to load up bubonic plague bombs that they used on China already and use it on the coasts of San Diego, San Francisco, I think Seattle might have been, or Portland might have been another one, but basically all around the coast, the West Coast. And that was planned for November. That operation would have been planned for, I think, like November of that year in 1945. The Japanese didn't surrender. Official documentation said that it was abandoned by one of the high command, and the rationale from that person was like, yeah, now it's going to turn into a battle of plague versus humanity, and if the world sees that Japan is responsible for that, they're all going to turn on Japan, and that would be guarantee our destruction. And so that's the official story about Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night. But the movie seems to suggest that the operation was about to go ahead as planned, and that they had a scene in the beginning where there were like these hot air balloons all over the world. There, like this Eiffel Tower in Moscow and whatever. They made it seem like the Japanese were planning to release plague against the world. So I don't know if that's just Chinese embellishment or propaganda. Like they might have been a little bit pushing the scale on the propaganda side of that one. But it's definite that they want to emphasize that Japanese had it out, not just for the Chinese. They had it out for a lot of people, for their quest of conquesting the world, or at least their sphere of Asia at first, and then probably the world. So then that was kind of like why I was like, oh, this is interesting. They're kind of trying to appeal here. And then there's a scene kind of where they're like saying all of their names in their respective languages. There's multiple scenes about like different languages being spoken. You know, the main character, for example, is someone who is a translator because he can speak all these different languages. So he acts as the he's kind of like seen as the traitor, I guess, in the movie. But you know, in the movie, it kind of like shows that no one had any chance. You know, everyone, there were no survivors, so you couldn't really be a traitor because like, you know, there was nothing to betray, because even that character figures out early on that his fate is death as well, just a more merciful death rather than a Unit 731 death. I guess that was his reward. You know, not being Unit 731 was the reward for quote unquote betraying. But because of that, I don't want to spoil what happens, but he is a translator, and you know, it talks about all these different things. And so as a movie, I was kind of like, I understood it is a very difficult proposition because as we know, the only reason we know about it is because of those trials, and the Japanese also used villagers kind of to collect rats for them. They didn't say what it was for, but they would say, hey, collect all these rats for us and we'll give you money or rice or whatever the case may be. So there were people in that area, that the Chinese area, that weren't subjects, but they were kind of like villagers that were unwittingly or unknowingly working for Unit 731. Didn't know what it was about, right? Obviously, but after, you know, it blew up, after the war ended, they kind of figured out what was going on. And so, you know, the Russians, the Soviets kind of also knew what was going on. So that's how we even know that this exists. So unfortunately, there is no actual, you know, this isn't based on a true story or anything like that, because there was no survivors. So we have no idea what it was actually like for survivors in there, other than, you know, testimony from former Unit 731 doctors, testimony from, you know, obviously Russians and the Chinese or whatever. So they kind of had to create this sort of story, and for the most part, I think it works. I think the one that they chose for the Nanching story is a little bit better, but that might be only because they had a little bit more information, and so they could color and shape it a little bit more. Like it felt like it could more be accurate to the story, whereas this sort of had a little bit of a, you know, based on real events kind of feel, rather than you know, not that Dead to Rights was based on a true story either. I mean, like, it wasn't actually a true story that in the way that it happened. It was also a lot of creative liberties in that thing, but that felt more organic than this one. I don't want to spoil it, but I also kind of understand why, because yeah, the reasons I mentioned before, and also like because it is for the West, you kind of also want to show them the horror aspect of Unit 731, and there's no real way to do that with a very good story, because like, but I will say it is a pretty good story for what it is. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's meh or whatever. I'm saying it's a pretty good story still. It's just not as good as Dead to Rights. Dead to Rights to me was like A+ story, maybe A story, and this story was kind of like B+, A-. You know, not bad, pretty good, but just not as good as Dead to Rights. That being said, I think it's going to be very effective for the average person. They're not gonna be as nitpicky about me, especially, you know, since they probably never even going to see Dead to Rights anyway. The average horror film fan is going to be like, holy shit, wait, this is actually real? Like, this shit actually happened in real life? Like, the average horror fan will be like, wait, this is like a real life horror film. Like, that's fucking crazy. And so the horror fan will be like, yeah, they'll be like, wait, what the fuck is going on here? They'll be like, Yeah, because it shows pretty much everything that happened. I mean, I guess it doesn't show more of the sexual stuff. Like I know that they somewhat they would have they would inject some men with syphilis, and then I think they would have some of the men rape some of the women to see how syphilis contracted and stuff like that. Shit like that. They didn't show that, I guess. But they show pretty much. They show enough. They show enough for people to be like digging and finding out even more, being horrified. And I think I like it in that way. Um, but yeah, I'm really curious. I'll wait a couple weeks before I kind of talk about my thoughts on the actual film because I don't want to spoil it. What's the band Behind the Sun? I don't think I've seen that one. Is that Chinese? Was it shot with all dark? No, it wasn't all dark colors and shadowing. I think that would be too. I actually think that would detract from the film if it was all dark. I think I like the fact that there are shots where it is very bright and light, but it's in a way that's very creepy. You'll see what I mean, I guess. Um, but yeah, I would definitely check it out, especially since like movies in Hollywood these days are so bad. I just feel like when I saw this, I got I got emotional at the end. I'm not gonna lie, I teared up at the end, um, because I was just kind of like thinking, yeah, we have like. Did you know that we have more movies about World War II than we have about the Civil War, or the Revolutionary War? We have more movies about World War II than both of those combined, I think. Um, and none of them have ever mentioned 731, Unit 731, ever. It's always about the Nazis. It's always about the Germans. It's always about the Jews who are the ultimate victim, right? But when I saw this, I was like, this is the Tokyo trials. 80 years later, we are now seeing the Tokyo trials in real time. Litigated now by mass consensus. Not anything about legal bullshit about the fucking UN or fucking United States running the UN or all this fucking bullshit nonsense about Western law or Western, what Western law recognizes as fucking genocidal nonsense. Because, as we all see in Israel, the Western law is fucking bullshit nonsense. But now we're seeing China sort of like, all right, well, if we're not going to have those trials, we're going to have our own trial. We're going to have a trial of public opinion. We're going to make these movies now that we're strong enough to make these movies. And now that everyone can see Israel's bullshit about the Holocaust, we're going to come out with these films that really talk about the fucking Japs and their fucking treachery that you guys have been trying to hide for the longest fucking time. And yeah, I just teared up because I was like, finally, like, justice is being fucking served. Like, finally, we are fucking finding some justice, No, that's not what they mean, because what they mean by unfilmable is just that they want that to be buried and not talked about. Because that definition was true, the Holocaust would be unfilmable, correct? If the Holocaust was worst thing of all time, then that would be unfilmable. No, unfilmable is just a way for filmmakers, or rather the state, to kind of hide things that they don't want people to see. That's what's unfilmable. Because there are plenty of stuff that is in horror films that a lot of people would consider unfilmable, especially like The Exorcist and all this shit. So that's just a fucking bullshit nonsense term. So I definitely recommend if you're Asian, if you're Korean, if you're Chinese, if you're Russian, and if you want to know more about the history of your people, definitely watch it. Probably not a date thing. Um, oh, well, I think it's more that the syphilis thing, especially with Chinese audiences, because it is in Mandarin, right? Like, yes, it is for the West, but it's also kind of like a Mandarin thing. Um, they kind of have a little bit more censorship when it comes to more grotesque things like that. But yes, that would be the unfilmable thing. Sorry, I guess maybe I'm a little over aggressive. Yeah, you should definitely take all your Japanese friends to the movies, David Tay. Especially, you know, what was an interesting choice. So the first Dead to Rights movie, you know, there's the main antagonist is this Japanese actor, you know, who studied at the University of Tokyo. Actually, I'm gonna check that out right now. Who is the main Japanese actor for this? But the reason that was interesting to me was like, oh, like the University of um uh, my sister let my membership run out, I guess. But the University of Tokyo is like one of their best colleges. So like for a person to go into acting in Chinese film, I'm like, "Oh, this guy knows the truth. This actor found out the truth about the of his own people and decided, "Hey, I'm going to help China now," you know, because like obviously he's clearly educated. So that was interesting to me. Like how do they find these things? And already I see on Unit 731 on the IMDb page, it's already rated 2.9 out of 10. So you know those fucking Japs are downvoting it. So if you can, also, if you have an IMDb account, uprate this. Give it a 10 out of 10, even if you don't think it's 10 out of 10. Because we got to fight the fucking Japs. See, even right now, they're trying to suppress this shit. That's what they did with Iris Chang. They basically like either CIA or the Neto use fucking killed her. The Japanazis, they're fucking trying to attack any sort of truth about this shit. So definitely watch it. At least watch it out of protest for the Japs. That's what I say. Because fuck the Japs. Am I right? The Imperial Japs. That's what I mean by Japs. See, when I say Japs, I mean Nazis. You know, Nazi was a term that was created by Jewish people for the Nazis. They called themselves National Socialists. They didn't call themselves Nazis. So the Japs, they didn't call themselves the Japs either. They didn't call themselves the Nips either. So I'm going to call them the Japs because that's what they were. The Nazis were the Nazis and the Japs were the Japs. So when I say Japs, I mean the Imperial Japanese. If the shoe don't fit, why wear it? Right? If you ain't a Jap, if you ain't pro Imperial Japan, then you're not a Jap. So, you know, if you are a Japanese and you feel offended about me using Jap, well, maybe stop your other countrymen from being fucking Japs. Think about that. Takeshi Kaneshiro. Was that the actor for Dead to Rights? Let's see. How do I get the fucking... Oh wait. I think the Japanese woman in the movie might have been Chinese. Wait. Oh no. Yeah. Was it? No, I think it's Yasuyuki Hirata. No. No, he played the Unit 731 doctor. Or he played Ishishiro. Wait, there's only one Japanese name. I think. Wait, was that a? Evil Unbound. Local vendor. Who played the Japanese woman? Damn it. Alright, well, I'm gonna have to figure that out later. But, I guess, like, there's this trend, like that's what I was thinking about, too. Like, you know, how do people get, actors to play Japanese actor? Because, like, they deny it all the time, right? So then, I'm sure those actors are seen as like, they probably can never go back to Japan. They're probably, like, seen as traitors that would probably, like, get killed by some fucking right-wing Jap, if they ever came back. I'm quoting a Reddit comment about why you can't insert a white protagonist into the event. You can't make a tentpole film, wholly Chinese, Japanese. You can't make it PG-13. Oh, well, yeah, I guess that too. Yes, the general Hollywood is just generally racist against Asians. So yes, something like this would never get made for that reason. Of course, yes, I get that. But I think it's also that even if say we were white or whatever, I don't even fucking know what the, like, I guess the point is the American military and CIA had a vested interest of even more suppressing that, just besides the general Asian erasure. And a lot of that probably stems from stuff like this, right? The Korean War, Unit 731, Vietnam War. Because of these events, that's probably the main reason Asian people are invisible in American society, because the more people, particularly Asians, if Asian Americans start figuring out their own history, they might start to feel very differently about America, and they might start to feel very differently about Japan. And so, you know, you can see why Asians aren't in Hollywood at all. Probably because the more they were in Hollywood, the more people would humanize Asians, and the more people would be like, hey, wait a second, what did happen to them in World War II? I care about Asians now. Let's see what's going on in World War II. Let's see what was going on with. Why did the Japanese have war with China, the rest of Asia? What really went on? You know, people asking more and more questions about the Japanese, and that's probably why we've been fucking relegated to second-class citizenships ever since, because they can't afford for us to collectively wake up and figure out the fucking Japs were trash and the Americans fucking bailed them out the entire time. Imagine that. Imagine if we figured out, or if, you know, if we found out, for example, Israel. What if we all found out that Jewish Zionists helped German Nazis during the Holocaust? What would happen then? Yeah, that's probably why they make all these Hollywood films about the Nazis, to be like Nazi, 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 Nazi. And on the other side, they're like, oh, wait, Japan, what did they do? They didn't do anything, whatever. They're just Asian. Who cares? They died. And so you can see, kind of compare and contrast two sides of the propaganda machine. There's like over, you know, Holocausting, over, you know, saturation of like Holocaust in the media, and then total suppression of the Japanese war crimes, both for very specific imperialist purposes. And you can kind of like now see, or I guess I can kind of now see, you know, with my experience in Hollywood and my experience in seeing how propaganda is made and how, you know, how all of this fucking works. Now it's beginning to all make sense. You know, I always thought, oh yeah, you know, they don't do stuff with Asians because they're just ignorant about Asians. They don't know about our lives. You know, there aren't any good Asian American writers. We haven't written any good stuff and blah blah blah, and we don't have like a, good cultural base to draw on. All these different sort of fucking excuses I thought up in my mind of like why Asians weren't in the industry, and all of them kind of have an element of truth. But the biggest one now is basically, yeah, it was all about imperialism. It was all about keeping the Asian American and the rest of America kind of like ignorant about Japan, and Korean War and the Vietnam War. So yeah, that's kind of like my thoughts on the movie. Um, Definitely check it out before it leaves. It'll probably leave theaters relatively soon since it is a foreign film, and it was kind of funny. There was this older Korean ajumma with us. So we saw it in matinee showing. So I'll probably try to see it again over like a weekend night just to kind of like gauge whatever. And I want to see it with my screenwriter friend in LA. But there was it was just me, Quinn, the writer of this book, Jenny, and this other Korean woman. She's kind of like, I want to say she's probably in her 50s or 60s, and she was just kind of like, oh, people are gonna watch this, and people are gonna like, like learn about the Japanese finally, right? And then I was like, yeah, no, you don't know how the Western mind works. This requires subtitle reading. This requires watching Asians in film. This requires getting over anti-Asian racism to watching Chinese film. There's so many barriers to entry, like, of this not succeeding in America. The main thing is just not in English. Like, American audiences are just too, whatever it is, they're just too retarded to do that. So it's just kind of like, yeah, it's just like, oh man. It was also interesting because there were two, besides us four in the matinee show, there were two other Chinese girls. I think they were college age. They were in college, or they were from China, but they were studying in San Francisco, I guess. And so they already kind of knew about the stuff. So they weren't like, because the Korean auntie was all like, oh, were you surprised? Like, what made you, like, whatever? And so, like, yeah, they're Chinese. They know. They all know because China teaches them the actual history, not like fucking America or South Korea, even our fucking traitor scumbag Chinopah scum who tried to hide it as well. That's the other thing too, that I'm seeing now. There's this whole push right now with fucking, now that Yoon Suk Yeol has been fucking finally impeached, the fucking coping pieces of shit in Korea, the conservatards, especially the Korean American conservatards, they're basically the Adidas Viets of Korea, right? Especially in the OC, there's a lot of fucking Korean conservatards there. But they're all like trying to connect the Kirk murder now to the left wing in Korea, and that is fucking retarded because even the left wing in Korea is pretty anti-homo. I mean, all of Korea is pretty anti-homo, to be really honest. But yeah, it's just like screams of desperation because like all these fucking protests are also happening in the OC of Korean patriots. So it's just like, yeah, that's fucking nonsense bullshit. But I could tell they're sort of like getting desperate because of the Hyundai fiasco. Now that was a huge, like, first of all, Yoon Suk Yeol getting impeached was a huge blow to the right wing, and then Lee Jae-myung getting elected was a second fucking kick to the teeth. Now that he's trying to make closer relations with China, that's also kind of like bad for these fucking conservatard retards, especially in America. And now that the Hyundai thing happened, they are desperate, and so they're latching on this Charlie Kirk thing, and like for fucking dear life being like, hey, like, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the fucking Hong Kuckers, Joshua Wong and fucking Nathan Law and Agnes Chow, those fucking retard scum bitches. They were all like, "Oh yeah, save us, Republican senator, save us." Oh yeah, I'm taking pictures with fucking Josh Hawley and fucking Marsha Blackburn and all the fucking scummiest Republican senators ever. Marco Rubio, I'm sure. And what happened? Well, what happened was they lost and China won, and they ended up going to jail. And the senators were nowhere to be found after that happened. And so retarded Korean conservatards are going to win Fall For It Again awards pretty soon. Because no one in Korea is actually talking about Charlie Kirk. I mean, maybe like people who are obsessed with American politics are in Korea, and these conservatards who might have their analogs in Korea that also believe that this Charlie Kirk thing can save them. But most people in Korea are like, what the fuck was this bullshit thing that happened to Hyundai? Like, I cannot stress this enough. Like, Korean people are very prideful people. They do not take shit from anyone. And the moment they feel like you are disrespecting them, that is a bridge you cannot fucking repair. Like, those workers, they're never going to go back to America ever again for an assignment. It's done. Those workers, those specific 400 workers, they're never going back. And then to convince other like high-skilled workers to do the same. Yeah, that's not fucking happening. So this is a very serious situation that's going on that these fucking conservatards are trying to they're fighting against this tide, and they're just trying to use this Charlie Kirk thing to. And, on top of that, it's coming when China is now releasing these are atomic bombs. They're like fucking Dead to Rights and Evil Unbound. These are fucking propaganda atomic bombs. Soft power atomic bombs, being like, all right, you stupid fuck faces. You think you could play with me? We're gonna show you the rest of the fucking world who you fucking supported, you Chinilpa scum. Like, that's their statement to the South Korean government. They're like, this is what the Chinilpa scum fucking supported. This is what the South Koreans supported. This is what your fucking leader supported, you dumb fucks. This is what we saved you from this shit. We saved you from these fucking Japs, and this is what your fucking government was hiding from you this entire time, you dumb fucks. So yeah. So no, I already know about the IDF stuff, collaborating with the Nazis as well, like directly, or the Stein group wanting to make a formal alliance with Nazi Germany in 1941 as well. I am learning all about that in my handy dandy book. Checking in SAR, Steve. Check the VOD later. What's the VOD? Yeah, I was asked the same thing. How'd they get Chaps to play the Chaps? Yeah, I think it was just like there are, like even at this conference, there was a presentation, I guess, where I think there was like these two Japanese people who were, it was kind of like this weird spoken word thing. I wasn't even there for most of it. I was at another part of the conference during that section, but I came to the tail end. They were doing kind of like this thing where they were like, we're guilty. I can never live with this sin on my conscience or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's not. I feel like that's not really what Asian people want. Asian people just want accountability from your government. We don't want your like proselytizing, or not proselytizing, like prostrating yourselves and these whatever. I'm just kind of like, I mean, it wasn't, you didn't do it, but it's just like, as long as you're trying to educate other countrymen and trying to change your government and doing that, that's enough for me. You don't have to do this whole performative song and dance. But I guess like the point is there are some Japanese who do feel very like anti their government because of all this. And um you know, I feel like those actors that act in these movies, they probably had a coming to Jesus moment like that. Especially the one I mentioned. Like, you don't go to the University of Tokyo as like a dumb person. You're probably pretty smart. So if he was pretty smart, he was probably also pretty curious, and he put two and two together. And so credit to there are some Japanese who do put two and two together. Some are a little white worshipping, too white worshipping for me, for my interests, like Hideo Kojima. But I do think that he also somewhat, you know, recognizes the truth of his own country, even though he overly worships white people, in my opinion. Nips are so harmless friend to the U.S. They are Charlie. Who's Charlie Kirk? Japanese actor could be Okinawan. Lol. I guess that's true. That's also true. He could be Okinawan. He could be an Ainu person that was also a persecuted minority in the Japanese. I think there was one other minority in that group that was also persecuted. I forget. But I think Ainu and the Okinawans were the main ones that, you know, they speak Japanese, but they were kind of like the first. Like, Okinawa is basically the Ireland of Japan. You know, they kind of just got taken over because they were a nearby island. And so, yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to say about that. Everything I want to say about the Japs. I still think, you know, if the goal is to learn from Chinese people, learn from Chinese communism, I think it behooves not only Asian people, but for actual communists, for actual Marxist-Leninists, to find out what interests Chinese people, what interests Chinese people about their own history. What was the uniting factor that allowed Mao Zedong to, you know, rally the people to his cause? You know, maybe if they learned more about this, they would be like, oh, this is the actual patriotism that Mao Zedong was talking about. This is like patriotism to save your own people from like genocide. That is the actual patriotism for Marxism Leninism, not the fucking like obviously the Nazi National Socialism. That's like using patriotism to kill people that you find undesirable. This is patriotism, patriotic socialism, or communism to save your own people from destruction from fascist forces. And this is a very obvious sort of point that one could tease out if they merely saw what the Japanese actually did instead of just sort of like, you know, only contextualizing it academically in your mind. So I would suggest anyone who is a communist to watch this film, because why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you find out how Mao Zedong found the people of China were willing to follow Mao Zedong? You know, these sorts of things were very, very important to Chinese people and to Asian people as a whole. But I don't know. That's why I'm just kind of like, again, you know what? Like I said before, you know, in every possible permutation of reality I can think of, even where, you know, America becomes communist tomorrow, my life would probably still be better in China. Because even if it got communist tomorrow, it'd take a lot of work to restructure the economy to where it needs to be. And China's already kind of like there. And not only that, I look like everyone there. I'm not gonna get fucking hated on. Like, yeah, the racism is not gonna even if we become communists tomorrow, the racism is not gonna disappear overnight. Um, I don't fucking know. And the fact of the matter is, communism is not coming tomorrow. You know, that's in the best case scenario, right? Communism, in my opinion, the best case scenario is that it comes after a Great Depression event and mass chaotic violence. And so, best case scenario, there's a massive civil war and communism results after around probably like 10 to 15 years from now. And even in that case, I have a high risk of just dying. If I stay in America, especially if I'm a communist in that regard. And so every permutation of reality suggests to me that I'd probably enjoy life a lot more, or at higher probability of survival, if I just pieced out tomorrow. Pieced out of here, or stopped all my communism in America and was like, you know what? You guys had a good run. Americans, you guys kind of had a good run, you know? The white man had a nice 500-year run in society, 500, 600 year. And maybe it's just time for that to end. You know, maybe for chaos, chaotically, whatever. And maybe I don't even need to be there for that ending. And maybe I can just watch from afar and not have to deal with it. I always joke. I probably said this on stream before too, but I always joke that I always feel like Jonah. You know, I guess like I feel like a combination of Moses and Jonah trying to Moses because I'm trying to lead my fucking people out of the desert back to Asia, and that's not happening. And then Jonah because I'm trying to go back to these Ninevites, the Americans, and be like, hey, you retards are retarded. Maybe not be retarded and fix yourselves. And that's, unlike the Ninevites, that's not working this time around. So I'm just kind of like, what am I doing here? Trying to convince retards that they're not retarded, and trying to convince Asian Americans to leave, but they're also retarded. So they don't do that either. So I just wonder, what am I even doing? What am I even doing, guys? All right, I feel like I joke. I feel like I joke about this every stream. And you know, maybe it'll just be a running joke. I mean, obviously the main primary reason is my parents. My parents were in Korea right now. There's a good chance I'd get the fuck out. But yeah. Yeah, American Communist Party in China, that would just be preaching to the choir. Preaching to the church. There are displaced Japanese from World War II that speak both Chinese and Japanese? Wait, what is that from? What are we talking about? What are we talking about? Sorry, I was yapping for a while, so I don't know what's going on in the chat. Why did Japanese hate other Asians so much? Well, it's not that they hated other Asians. They just saw them as useful tools for their empire. And I guess, like, their strategy in the beginning, the reason they went so, like, crazy during Nanjing and whatever, is that the Kwantung Army, well, first of all, they kind of were like the Nazi SA, in that they weren't very disciplined. They kind of like did stuff on their own sometimes, and they were kind of short-sighted in terms of their long-term objectives. But I guess like some of the Kwantung Army, I guess, or the initial landing in Nanjing and whatever, when they started the 37 sort of assault, the rationale was that there is, 500, 600 million Chinese people, and killing all of them isn't going to be easy. So maybe what we should do is make the initial assault so brutal that they're going to be scared into submitting. So that's why they did all those war crimes in Nanjing. Kind of like as a strategy, obviously partly because they were psychopaths and they were sadists, but also as a strategic way of trying to get China to surrender quickly, so that they could take over the country and then just genocide them more easily. But yeah, it wasn't really that they hated them, though. There is a small element of a small dick energy going on there, because they kind of know that everything culturally related came, like anything good that they have culturally kind of came from China. So they probably resented that. But yeah, mostly they just killed people because of their imperialist interests. Zaya wouldn't let us in because of Sesue Hokawa. Free Palestine shooting. I don't even fucking know what's happening. If it's New Hampshire, it's bullshit nonsense. How do they get shit? Hong Cuckers, yes. 3 groups. Nips are so harmless. Well, yeah, they're harmless now. But we all know they're fucking plotting. We all know that besides Israel, Japan definitely has secret nukes. Like, let's be fucking real. You think that they have all those nuclear reactors, including that fucking meltdown that happened in 2011? Think they have all those reactors and they don't have nuclear weapons? That's fucking bullshit. They're just like Israel. Japan also has nukes. I'm pretty certain. They probably hide it from even the CIA. They probably hide it from them. Yeah, my parents keep. Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, I am still Asian, so I am still feel that filial piety anchoring me to make sure my mom does not get japped. Yeah, never trust the Japs. That's for fucking sure. Like, and that's why the CIA/NSA, even though they are, even though the Japs are cooperative or whatever, even they have a kill switch in Japan's infrastructure. So if Japan ever got out of line against America, they could just shut down the entire country. But what's also interesting is that I heard this rumor, this Chinese rumor, or this Chinese, I guess, analysis. But apparently, you guys know the former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe? Or Abe Shinzo? He was like, he was the grandson of, I think, a war criminal, like a Class A war criminal. He also was in a unit, or he was also in an airplane that said 731 on the side. So he was a fucking Jap Nazi. But apparently, what I'm hearing is that, or what I heard over the conference, is that he was sort of like, before he was shot and before he was killed, he was sort of campaigning for closer ties with Russia and China for Japan economically. And soon after that, he was killed. And so some Chinese people believe that it's very similar to the Kirk thing, where, it seemed like he was anti-China his entire life, right? Or, he was a Jap his entire life. But then, towards the end, he was thinking, you know what, maybe we should make closer ties with China and Russia. And then he gets taken out by a right-wing nationalist, right? With a homemade gun. We all bought that story pretty quickly, did we not? Yeah, what do you think about that, Steve? Do you think do you buy it, or do you think your dad thinks it? At this point, knowing how the CIA created the LDP and pretty much controls Japan's entire government, I don't think it's out of the question. And especially with what just happened with Kirk, I'm just like, you know what? Crazier shit has been going on that it could be. That's the other thing too. You see that with Lee Jae-myung now. You know, he's just like kind of like suggesting, hey, maybe we should just, you know, that's what the whole Hyundai thing is probably also about too, right? That's the reaction about it. And you see the right wing in Korea being like, fuck you, blah, 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 blah. So it's like almost like maybe it wasn't the CIA directly, but maybe it was like the CIA using one of these right wing nationalists like that shooter, conditioning him and like, you know, being like, all right, it's time to take out Abe. All right, activate the MK Ultra device in his brain. You know, something like that. And you know, like Lee Jae-myung, right? He was somebody actually did try to kill him. Someone stabbed his neck a year ago, and he wasn't even the prime minister then. So people must have known Yoon Suk-yeol was on thin ice. This happened like last year, right? I think Lee Jae-myung was stabbed in the neck like last year. And, you know, people, you know, CIA probably knew things were going to heat up in South Korea anyway, with Yoon Suk-yeol being a fucking moron. They probably were like, well, in case that happens, we can't let this guy live. And then they found some fucking psycho right-wing South Korean to do that shit too or whatever. But yeah, I mean... Yeah, I mean, I'm just open-minded. I don't know what happened. I didn't look at the fucking... To be honest, I didn't look at the Abe Shinzo thing that closely. I mean, obviously, I was one of the people who celebrated. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say that I'm this morally righteous person that has never really celebrated for someone's death. But that was one where I was just like, yeah, that's right, bitch. You got killed by your own right wing. But now that I'm thinking, because of that reaction, I'm like, oh, is that the reaction people wanted, or the CIA wanted people to have, to be like, yeah, get that guy, you know, like, so they would not even think about what was behind it. I don't know. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is like why leftists don't even see what's going on with Charlie Kirk. They're just too happy about him being dead that they don't even like know what else could possibly. They're not even like entertaining other sorts of ideas of what actually even fucking happened. They're just like accepting FBI face value, or they're saying that it was a right-wing guy. They're not even saying that it's Israel, because they just hated Charlie Kirk so much that they can't even conceive of why Israel would kill him. So I think it might be the same thing with Charlie Kirk now. Or the same thing with Shinzo Abe now. But who knows? Who knows? In any case, Japan is very tightly controlled by the CIA, regardless of whether they were responsible for that or not. So it is very unlikely that... And, oh, the Chinese people who told me that story, they were also kind of pointing to the fact that even the past prime ministers were kind of like, yeah, like maybe we should do more stuff with China, and then they were getting hated on so much by the fucking Neto use, right? And then he was like, you know what, I'm resigning. So I think that strengthens the case that he was taken out for that reason, because like if someone is resigning from prime minister a month in from dissent about doing stuff for the thing, I'm just kind of like, you know what? Maybe he knows something we don't. You know, maybe these prime ministers that keep filing out of the job are like, hot potato, CIA hot potato. Don't kill me. Kill the next guy. Kill the next prime minister. Wait, two Japanese politicians that were trying to do an economic deal with China in 2012 mysteriously died. Oh shit! I'll have to look at that. Tadahiro Matsushita. Yeah, there you go. See, this is where the Asian intelligence networks. This is where we're figuring shit out. We're noticing here. This is the Asian American noticing channel. That's right. This is the Asia noticing channel. We notice everything. We don't just notice the Israelites. We notice the Japanese Israelites. I didn't also know this, but I knew about this plan. You know, the Japanese plan to import Jews into Manchuria to kind of like take advantage of their bureaucratic economic skills, because they actually thought the Nazi propaganda was true, but wanted it thought it was like positive true. But apparently the plan was also to have them like help them kill Chinese people or enslave them. And they somewhat carried that out a little bit. And now I'm just kind of like, wait, what the fuck? Like, you know, these Jews that were ostensibly saved from the Holocaust just fucking holocausting Chinese people? Like, what the fuck is up with that? How come we don't know about that one? I'll have to do a little bit more research on that, but yeah, now I'm just seeing all these different things about, especially now, Attack on Titan, because I was always wondering, because Attack on Titan to me is a two-layered propaganda thing. The first layer is very obviously Israel. It's very, you know, they honorary Marlians. You know, it's very obviously talking about Israel. The rumbling is obviously the Samson option. His idea of like, hey, we have to kill the rest of the world because the rest of the world wants to kill us. Very, very Israel. But underneath it is Imperial Japanese propaganda. It's just kind of like, yeah, we were kind of the same way as Israel, so you should feel sympathy for us. So then now that I'm seeing this all stuff going on, I'm just kind of like, wait a second. Was there also collaboration, not just with Zionists and the Nazis, but was there also collaboration going on with Zionists and the fucking Japs? Because I know Trotsky was working with the Japs as well as the Nazis. So it's not out of the question that Zionists were also working with the fucking Japs as well. So you got to figure that shit out. Yeah, the creator of Attack on Titan was an anti-Korean Nazi Jap. He was a Jap. That's what I call Japs who are Nazis. Japs. They're just fucking Japs. That's right. That's the Korean cracker. You know? If black people can call white people cracker, Korean people can call Japanese people Japs. Sorry for your audience, or sorry for your headphones, BM, but it has to be said. Japsies. It has to be said. Nips. And if they don't like that, we'll just call them Nips. Nips or Japs. Yeah, and guess what the Japanese were also responsible for during World War II? Cannibalism, right? What do you think the Titans are? They're fucking cannibals. It's literally trying to justify cannibalism. That's how fucking messed up this fucking creator is, if you actually see what the underlying message of what he's trying to say. And I talked to some people, like white women, who actually saw that at the conference, who saw Attack on Titan. And they were also being like, yeah, what are they saying? Aaron was right? What are you talking about? Aaron was right. Aaron killed 80% of humanity. or what do you mean he's right? Like, even like casual fans are like, yeah, the guy's kind of crazy at the end. But oh, sorry. Spoiler alert. But yeah. Like Attack on Titan is textbook Nietzsche. It's basically yeah, Nietzsche is all over that fucking show. Which is also interesting because Nietzsche inspired Theodor Herzl. He inspired Benito Mussolini. I think he's also inspired the Francoists. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, he inspired all these fascists. Not just the Nazis. It wasn't just the Nazis that used them. You know, Theodor Herzl, fucking Mussolini was inspired by Nietzsche. And so it's just kind of like, hey, y'all love this anime that is basically the basis for fucking fascism, you dumb fucks. Wait, how does the opening theme go? Isn't it dun 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 dun? I don't know. Didn't Stalin plan to invade Japan after? Stalin did invade Japan. Stalin invaded Japan. That was the Allies' plan. Like, America would attack, and then, they wanted the Soviets to attack Japan in 3 months after the agreement, or three months after the fall of the Nazis. They wanted Soviets to attack Japan with them because the Soviets at the time, they had signed a non-aggression pact with Japan in 1941 that they were sort of kind of like cagey about with the Japanese. Japanese were like, hey, that plan's still in place, right? You're not going to attack us, right? And Stalin was like, yeah, we're not going to attack you. But then, in August, the Soviets drove down to Korea, all the way down to the 38th, where they were told to stop right after Hiroshima. So Soviets were like, you know what? We will stop here, guys. We saw what happened in Hiroshima. Maybe we should not go back past the 38th right now. And then after that, the United States dropped Nagasaki, and then a few days later it was GG no Re. Japanese said GG no Re. No, actually, I guess America and Soviets said GG no Re. I guess they wanted to Re, but they couldn't Re, right? Because they were dead. But yeah, that's how it all ended. I watched it. I mean, Attack on Titan, it's a very good show. But that's why it's such powerful propaganda. And that's why white people are so entranced by it, and they still hate Asians, because implicitly anime is both self-hating and anti-China. So it's like kind of like glorifies Aryan people because they want to be honorary Aryans. Japan still wants to be honorary Aryans to this day. When you go to fucking Japan, like, their cities still have like this like LARPy European stuff to them. They're like crowded and fucking inefficient, but they try to LARP as like European in some parts of their cities. They still to this day want to be so white. That's why Hideo Kojima makes all his fucking games with white people, or even black people. Like, it's just like Westerners. They just want to be part of the fucking club. It's just like this fucking inferiority complex. First it was like because they were inferior to China, but now it's because they're inferior to the West because they were, fucking double tapped by nukes. And so if this entire time they're just kind of like, oh, I wish I could be white. I hate being Asian. That's where WMAF mind virus comes from too. Like self-hatred as an Asian person, that all fucking comes from Japan. So that's why when you watch anime, it kind of like it kind of justifies white people's like worshiping themselves because they're watching. That's why they like anime, because it's like worshiping them. They're like, oh yeah, I am cool, I am good, I am the best. And the other part is that it has this anti-China undercurrent under it, and that's why whoever watches anime who's white is typically an anti-Asian Nazi. They're white supremacist who hates Asian people because anime is always gassing up the whites. Exactly. Black weebs are even more retarded than white weebs. Like, do you not even understand what you're fucking watching? That's why the fucking when I saw the Yasuke, Black Samurai thing, I was more amused than offended actually. I was like, wow. Black people really are just retarded about geopolitics. They just don't even know what the fuck's going on. You know? They have no idea. Like even this it's just like so stupid. And I know why. I know it's because of W.B. Du Bois that's always praised all the time for being a communist, a black communist, but he praised Imperial Japan during World War II. And so black people thought Imperial Japan was based and that they were fighting for freedom against the white man. And they still think that to this day because, unfortunately, W.B. Du Bois never retracted that statement. So even the progressive black Americans who are not Marxist-Leninists came to think that Japan was actually on the good side. There are some black Americans who still probably think Japan was on the good side against America during World War II. That's how like fucking like weebed out they are, some of them. Not all of them. A lot of black people just don't even care about Japan. But like the fucking nerds, the fucking autistic black people, yeah, they are all about the anime. Because at the end of the day, anime is also, it's also WMF mind virus, which means that they're, basically sexualizing Asian women or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Especially with their pornography, etc., etc. Yeah. So that's what y'all are into. Y'all are just into Nazi shit when you watch anime. Hate to break it to you, logo dataless, but that's exactly what you are. You hate Asian people, and it's very obvious to anyone who's Asian. Might not be obvious to white people, but to anyone who's actually Asian or non-white, it's already self-apparent. It's not really a question in my mind. But yes. Wait, why are you a Nazi, Wang Ni-chan? Wait, where are we going, Ivan? It's been 2 hours. You just got here? I mean, I guess like not all. I mean, I'm not saying not all anime is Nazi bait. Obviously, there's like basic bitch anime that's just about nothing related to politics or whatever. Like, like I don't even fucking know what anime's out there, like I don't know. It's like stuff like fucking Dragon Ball Z, I guess, right? That's probably not about politics or whatever. That's just about some. It's about the Wukong black myth, right? It's just about whatever. Not all anime is bad. Blah, blah, blah. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying that it does have a strong Nazi undercurrent underneath it. It has a strong, especially the more engaging, the more dramatic, the more complex ones, the ones that feel like, oh man, this is like very complex, and it's animated so well, and it's art, and it feels like there's like a deeper message underneath. Yeah, that shit's all fucking Nazi shit. You are watching deep Nazi shit. That's what you're fucking watching. Because like even like I said, even people who probably know about Japan's dark history, like Hideo Kojima, even they are somewhat white worshipping. They never got over their honorary Aryan status. They want to like hold on to that. They're like, oh yeah, we are the honorary Aryans. Thanks Hitler. We do consider ourselves the honorary Aryans, actually. You know. Ha, cucker. That's yes. You anime say that. Most of it pronatalism. I mean, yeah, I guess pronatalism, but with the undercurrent of we don't want Africans or Indians here. Which is kind of funny, because they weren't complaining when white people were coming en masse and basically instilling the WMF mind virus after the war. So I don't really care about Japs complaining about immigrants anymore. I'm just kind of like, yeah, you were the reason this all fucking started in the East anyway, you dumb Jap. So fucking complain to someone else, fucking Jap. If you didn't start your fucking shit, if you actually teamed up with China and Korea and built up all our defenses together, like communistically, if we all did that fucking together instead of you just like fucking raping and killing all of us, then we wouldn't have immigrants in the beginning in the first place. We'd basically be ruling all the world under communism peacefully. We'd be like saving humanity right now. But no. Y'all wanted to have your fucking little fun, and now you're in the mess where you now have Jeets and Africans coming into your country. And so don't come bitching to the rest of Asia. Don't go bitching to anyone else. That's your fault. That's the Jap fault. You know? Again, I like it, although I'm not an extreme weeb. Yeah, no, I mean, like, I've watched anime before. I'm not saying that if you watch anime, you're a bad person. Everyone's watched propaganda, right? Everyone's watched Marvel movies. Marvel movies are all Zionist propaganda, too. So, congratulations. You watched that, probably, I watched... What did I watch? I started watching more so in fucking... What did I watch? It was funny because, like, in high school, my friend was into that shit. I kind of made fun of it. Like, when I played Metal Gear Solid, how there's a Hal Emmerich. His name is Otacon because he's, like, a fucking nerd that watches a lot of fucking anime shit. And then I would call my friend Otacon. He was Korean. But it was also because I was a little anti-Jap, even back then. I wasn't, like, full anti-Jap, but, like, because my name was MacArthur, or after MacArthur, I personally thought it was because of World War II. I learned later on it was because of the Korean War. But at the time, I was, like, pretty pro-Korean and pretty pro-American. So I was like, oh, you like that Jap shit? I didn't say that at the time. I was like, oh, God, you're an Otacon. You're like a fucking nerd who, like, watches anime. I remember he was into, like, Kenshin back then. I think his brother was really into Cowboy Bebop. I couldn't really get into Cowboy Bebop, to be honest. I thought it was just kind of boring. I did watch Trigun, though, in high school on my friend Otacon's suggestion. I like that. Vash the Stampede. That was pretty fun. I kind of tried to watch this Kenshin movie that he gave me for my birthday once, and I was like, it's kind of boring. So I actually didn't really even like anime until college, when everyone and their mom, or every Asian at the time, not every American. This was like pre every American, but 2002 when I went to college, every Asian at the time was basically into Naruto. And so, I kind of got into that shit myself. And, I started doing the hand seals, whatever, like whatever. Doing the fucking Naruto run before it was cool, the early 2000s. Not obviously in the 2010s when fucking whites got into that shit. That's when it all got ruined. In the late 2000, early 2010s. That's when Naruto got fucked. I also watched Bleach. That kind of like had a worse story than Naruto, but I kind of liked it a little bit. I actually think I liked it a little bit more than Naruto, but the story was kind of meh. But I liked the character of Ichigo a lot more than Naruto because he was a little bitch. And I kind of liked that theme song, even though it's cheesy as fuck. The number one. Now you see I'm number one, shining bright for everyone. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like both Bleach and Naruto, they're like fucking white dudes. It's like, when did white dudes become the last samurais? Right? I don't fucking know. And then the next anime I watched, that what's my favorite of all time, is Death Note. But now that I'm watching it, I watched it again recently, and I'm like, this is a little demonic / nihilist. I don't know if I like it as much anymore because of that. I feel like the darkness is taking over me when I watch this shit now. But I did like it at the time. And I still consider myself, having very similar qualities to L and Light. To me, that anime is just like Battle of the Autists. Battle of the Autistic Men. Just like, that last Batman, the one with fucking, what's his name? The Twilight guy. What's his name again? Ugh, God, I'm terrible with names now. God, this is gonna kill him. Robert Pattinson, right? And then the other guy, Paul Dano, was the Riddler. And I was like, this is just the Battle of the Autists again. Death Note was that Battle of the Autists Part 1, and then Batman, that recent Batman, was Battle of the Autists Part 2. It's just like Battle of the Autistic people trying to out autist the other person. And then after that, I didn't really watch too much anime, to be honest. Bleach, Naruto, Death Note were the big ones that I watched. And then I watched Attack on Titan. I finished it this year just to kind of like confirm my suspicions of what it was about. And then I also started watching this anime called Monster, which was recommended to me by David Tay. Or rather, no. The story is, so I went to David Tay's place. So we do this thing where we kind of like just veg out in New York City for a week during the holidays and just like watch, smoke up and watch like Netflix or whatever. So we started watching Monster, this anime on Netflix, and I stopped watching, but he kept watching the whole thing and finished it, and like finished the 76 fucking episode Monster anime in like 3 or 4 days. And my first question is like, why would you do that ever? My second question was like, what was so compelling about it? And David Tay tells me, yes, David Tay, the Nazi anime, apparently it has to do with it literally has to do with Hitler. And it has to do with some sort of reincarnation of Hitler thing. I haven't watched the whole thing myself. I'm only 27. Don't spoil the thing. David, I feel like you already spoiled it, and I feel like I, in turn, already spoiled it to the rest of the people. But the Hitler reveal does not happen by episode 27 or so. But I'm probably gonna watch that when I have more time. But those are the only kind of like that's the only animes I feel like I've been into. And the first two, Naruto and Bleach, were mostly because that was like stuff that was in college and everyone was watching it. I was never really that into anime itself, unless it was kind of like interesting, like I guess maybe that's why I like Death Note, because it's like autistic. It was two autists. I didn't know I was autistic at the time, but it was like two autists fighting. And I was also into Dexter Morgan at the same time, and then somebody who recommended it to me, because I still wasn't into anime at the time. So a guy who was into anime was like, "Oh yeah, it's kind of like Dexter." I was like, "All right, I'll check it out." That's how I got into Death Note. Not to say, I don't. Obviously, I did play a lot of JRPGs, so I still am somewhat influenced by that, even though it's not exactly anime. Like, JRPGs still have very similar story elements to animes, particularly the more political and deep ones, so to speak. So I did get that Nazi Jap training from some of the FF7s or the Final Fantasies. But some of the Final Fantasies were more, I will say that some Japanese content is anti-Imperial Japan, in the same way that some places use German stuff to be pro-Imperial Japan. Some people use German stuff to be anti-Imperial Japan. That does exist. I would say Full Metal Alchemist is an example. I would say FF7 is an example, where one of the guys is literally one of the evil Shinra guys is literally Heidegger, right? You can't get more on the nose than that. And then I think Hojo, the scientist, the one that's kind of like Ishishiro, is either Ishishiro or you can call him like Hideki Tojo, right? That was the military leader of the IJA. So I think like Final Fantasy VII is somewhat critical of Imperial Japan as well, as Full Metal Alchemist. So I'm not gonna say that all of Japan media is this, but I will say that it was probably developed for this purpose by state actors. I have to do more research about that, but I'm somewhat 50%, 60% convinced that there was at least some state influence in the development of anime. Yeah, but Hayao Miyazaki also made The Wind Also Rises, and so if I made a movie about Hitler and the development of the V2 rocket, I feel like that probably would not be a well-received movie among most people. So I don't buy the Miyazaki shit at all. I think he's just a Jap in disguise. Just like liberal Zionists, right? Liberal Zionists like Bernie Sanders, who are like, oh yeah, he's committing a genocide now, right? Like, yeah, when it's politically convenient, you'll fucking admit it, but nah, he's a fucking Jap. So, I don't care how good his art is. I don't care that he, revolutionized some sort of animation style. I don't care. He's a fucking Jap through and through. After he made that movie, he made another one, I think, after that was even more Jap. So, no, I don't trust any Jap, especially when they do that shit. You should watch Solo Leveling. Lol, it's a Korean. Yeah, watch The Wind Also Rises, or The Wind Rises. It's a 2013. So, let me just, the film portrays a fictionalized account of the life of Japanese aeronautical engineer Jiro Horikoshi. in particularly his engineering career from the time of University of Tokyo in 1923 to his first test flight of the Mitsubishi Ka-14 on February 1935. Juxtaposed with the historical events is a fictional romance of Horoshiki's, inspired by the similarly named semi-autobiographical novel The Wind Has Risen by Tatsuo Hori. The film was originally intended to be Miyazaki's final feature film. So it's his final film. So it's a pretty big statement if you're making your fucking last film a Jap glorifying film. Released, Wind Rises was the highest grossing Japanese film of 2013 in Japan. Though it caused some political controversy and criticism in Asia, it was met with critical acclaim. Yeah, this shit was fucking Nazi bullshit. That's the shit Logo Daedalus likes. That's the fucking shit Logo communist LARP Logo Daedalus likes. Let's see. Let's see what The Boy and the Heron was about. During the Pacific War, Maki blah blah blah, in the firebombing of Tokyo. Wow, we're talking about American war crimes during World War II for some sympathy, huh? Yeah, this is fucking bullshit. Miyazaki was a fucking sleeper cell Jap the entire time, and now he's making all this fucking Jap shit. And you know why? You know what I learned about Miyazaki? He was inspired, so Miyazaki was born in 1941, right? And what happened during 1941? This is what happened. They were making anime shit to make a cute face on Imperial Japanese stuff, like reports all around the fucking world. They were the beginning of anime was actually before World War II. I think it was the 1920s, 1930s. But during World War II, the Japs actually did use it for their own fucking propaganda purposes. And what's the first stuff that Miyazaki was inspired by? These propaganda films during the 1940s. He was a Jap the entire fucking time. Fuck that guy. Fuck Logo. Piece of shit. Yeah, it's kind of like, there are some Zionists who are like, oh yeah, the Nakba was bad. Oh yeah, Netanyahu is evil. Oh yeah, it's just that Netanyahu is bad and the Nakba is bad. But everything else, we deserve Israel. It's just like the same fucking shit. This is Miyazaki. The same fucking shit. Oh yeah, the Japanese war crimes are bad, but I'm just going to make my last 2 films before I fucking die, before I fucking croak, glorifying these fucking Japs. That's right, illustrious. Someone's got to do it. If it's any Asian in the fucking world, it's Doug Kim. Kim Il-sung's spiritual successor. Anyway, I feel like I've been yapping for way too long about the Japs. So unless anyone else has anything else, probably going to end. Yeah. Only like fucking white people like Miyazaki films. Let's be fucking real. I don't fucking watch that shit. That's right. I'm not suicidal. Again, if I'm ever caught dead in mysterious circumstances from a gunshot wound or anything like that, it was not a suicide unless you have a video of me killing myself and then you have a video of me signing a note with 3 witnesses that are notaries who also notarized my signed suicide note that I'm going to deliberately kill myself at a specific time, and that the timestamp on the video would reflect that exact time that I kill myself. So, unless you have all those evidences as proof, I did not kill myself. All right, check out SARS. All right, see ya, Cucker. He was a Jap, playing a Jap, pretending to be a Jap. Exactly, BM. I know what you're talking about. You're talking about Tropic Thunder. I caught the reference, but yes, that's exactly what he was doing. He is playing a dude, playing another dude, playing the other dude. What do you think of the recent right-wing crash out going on? You're going to have to be more specific. I mean, there's a lot of crash outs going on, so you're going to have to be more specific about what exactly is crashing out. I mean, there's a lot of different factions that are crashing out. I think I'm lagging because the questions are not happening in real time. Basically, they're set at these liberals mocking Charlie's death and are calling for this Palantir state. Oh, well, yeah, those people are retarded. They still think that it was a leftist. They still think it's transgender spider them. So why would I be concerned with the opinions of retarded people? Right now, it's just kind of like the big thing that's going on is the wrestle for power right now. Between Ben Shapiro, Nick Fuentes, and the rest of the right-wing JQers. They are all kind of like fighting for influence right now, especially like, you know, Candace Owens is like on the right-wing JQer leader, kind of like whatever. It's funny that a black woman is doing that. I guess Tucker Carlson is kind of in the same boat, right? Transgender spider them, actually, D. Wallace. But yeah, I you know, just like fucking retarded liberals, you know, are crashing out over Jimmy Kimmel getting fired. That's retarded. But, you know, the right, you know, MAGA people who think that a spider them killed Charlie Kirk, or are getting mad that people aren't like upset that he died, you know, that's also retarded. Like, I'm not cheering his death, but I'm not gonna be like, oh no, random white dude who hated Asian people died, let me cry now. Like, no, that's not gonna happen either. So yeah, I just think that they're retarded. I guess that's... Well, Wong Oni-chan, I think for me, the calculus is just I don't pay attention to any of that unless it actually does get passed as law. Because otherwise it's just blowing up smoke. I see that, you know, the Republicans might try to do stuff like that, but we'll see if like laws get actually passed. But yeah, if you're telling me that, because the thing is, like, California itself is trying to pass laws because of the Kirk incident about anti-Semitism or whatever, all this fucking bullshit that's now trying to be passed on the rug now that everyone's eyes are on this fucking thing. California state now is trying to like fucking protect, you know, Israel with its own fucking laws, which kind of goes to show you that this was never about left and right all along. It was clearly about just protecting Israel. But yeah, if my eyes are on kind of those laws, if those laws pass, like, of anti-Semitism, I'm done with America. I feel like I'm just like, no, this is not a country I want to live in anymore. That is my line. Like, because the biggest benefit of me living in America, like other than my parents being here and all this, is free speech. And so if you're telling me I can no longer exercise the one thing I'm staying in America for, like, no, why would I stay here? You know, that's the whole reason I don't go to South Korea, because they have the national security law. You can literally never say anything good about North Korea. And so I still have that here, right? And it's also kind of like why, somewhat of a reason I'm not going to China, Singapore, or Vietnam right now, for similar reasons. Because like, while, you know, in China, Vietnam, you know, obviously in Singapore, you know, there'd be a lot of stuff that I couldn't say, but even in China and Vietnam, there's probably some stuff I can't say, especially about regarding the Khmer Rouge and stuff like that, that I'd be censored for, and possibly stuff about DPRK as well, that I really don't want to deal with that at this juncture. But yeah, I guess like to make a long answer short again, because I wasted so much time answering this, I guess, or not wasted, but like spent so much time. Yeah, it all just depends for me on the legality of like free speech. Like what are they going to pass? Are they going to pass things on this? Then if they pass that, like I'm going to start accelerating my timetable to leave. Like, you know, because yeah, it's just like my whole, yeah, if I can't say what I want to say, then it's not worth it for me to stay here. And not only that, it would probably be a big signal that this country is going fascist anyway. And just that alone, too, you know, my main reason of being here, and, you know, just indicative of it now being clearly very fascist. We're already kind of like seeing that with the TikTok buy with Larry Ellison, of all people, right? Just Zionist networks just taking over, right? Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this fucking. God, sorry. I don't know why it's the lighting is so harsh on me right now. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I need my soft. I'm too lazy. I do have a soft light, but I'm just too lazy to. It's just a fucking stream. It's not a video. Whatever. Fuck you. This is a low effort stream, okay? This is low effort. Low effort stream. Kirk at more. Let's see what the chat. Transgender Spider-Man identifies as a fly. California. LAPD is trained by the IA. Yeah, exactly. It's Doug Aura farming. Anyway, that's it for me. I'll see you guys on Thursday. I'll be back. I don't know what I'll be talking about. I don't even know anything anymore. But come ready, because I'm sure there will be a lot of crazy shit that's going to happen. I'll see you later.